it may save you some emotional trauma if you can understand some of what seems to be very bizarre behaviour, but which makes sense when you comprehend what is actually happening. Understanding Alzheimer's sufferers' behaviour can help you develop coping strategies and activities to keep them organised and safe. First of all, the phone might ring. Can you come to grandparents' evening tomorrow night at the school? Yes, certainly, we'll be there. And the Alzheimer's, they put the phone down and they totally forgot it. So the next thing is you hear, why didn't you come to Grandma's day? Everybody's upset. And they don't know. They've just, the memory had gone. The minute the message went through. Some of the early signs of repetitive behaviour may manifest themselves as forgetfulness. Your loved one might say, I'll just go into the bank and get some money. And you say, fine. You walk down the road and they say, I'll just go in the bank and get some money. And you think, there's something odd here. They might be driving along the motorway and say, oh, I'll just go and get some petrol and then we'll have a cup of tea. So having got the petrol, had the cup of tea, you set off again and they say, I'll just go and get some petrol and have a cup of tea. They've totally forgotten that they've done it yet again. So these are the things that start the bells ringing and you think there's something going on that is a bit more than just forgetfulness. This becomes more apparent when you ask the loved one to get a towel out of the cupboard. Suddenly, all the towels are out of the cupboard, they're all on the floor. It's no good saying, why have you done that? They won't know why you've done that. But when you go and get a towel out of the drawer or the cupboard, you think, what do I do now? So your brain says, take it to the kitchen, take it to the bathroom. But their brain cells are not passing on messages, so it's a bit like a record getting stuck. If you then say to them, well, can you put that towel back in the cupboard, you'd probably get the cupboard filled up again. If you go to the kitchen and find that cups are all out, he might have gone in or she might have gone in for a cup. And then everything's out on the table because they're forgetting what to do with the cup. And it's just this repetitive, get the cups out. It's the same with putting clothes on. Can you put your cardigan on? It's cold. And you might go and there's 4 cardigans on because they've forgotten to stop. And one of the bizarre bits is if you come in from a walk and you say, can you take your coat off? And you turn around and they're suddenly standing there naked. Because they've just continued taking the clothes off. And so if you understand why, then you're ready to put them onto different tasks and to organise the next activity. And it's a bit like having a baby and you know what to expect and you understand the behaviour. It's much easier. It's very difficult, but there's no good saying, why did you do that? Because they don't know and they don't know they've done anything wrong. So, where have we got to? So if you understand why they're doing these behaviours, it's easier to cope. You've got to be one step ahead. And finding jobs that are repetitive, like sweeping leaves or cleaning the brass or dusting. I mean, they might dust the same table about 3 times, but they feel that they're being useful and they're doing something. Another huge concern for families is when sufferers answer selling calls on the phone. Families discover later that their loved one has either booked timeshare holidays to Austria. It reminds me of an aunt. She had booked herself and her husband on the inaugural flight of Concorde from London to New York with a champagne breakfast thrown in. She had seen it all in the newspapers in those days, and she had a little black and white television, and it was all over there. So she booked it, so the family had to quickly cancel this. And because it was all on television, she was quite convinced that she had actually been on Concorde, she'd been on the train. And of course, this brings me back to the televisions. A child told me recently that Grandma thought she had been to the Olympics because it was all on television. Oh, I've been, we went to the opening ceremonies and things. And you've got to remember that if there's anything not very nice on television, anything that's a bit nasty, switch it off, because they really do think that they are part of what's on television. And so anything that isn't very nice.
My mum sees the Thin Lizzy thing, and she thinks everyone's going to paint a face.
Oh, right.
It's going to be red, she says. Where did you get that from? Anyway, she keeps seeing that ad and it terrifies her.
Yeah,
I know.
it is, but you know, this is how she's reacting to that situation. Isn't it?
And all the murders and that on the news,
Oh,
she
yeah.
hates watching.
Yeah,
It's
this is it.
terrifying.
You've really got to turn it on. So TV ads attempted by Ant to book this. And I've told you about don't show violence on TV. Only last week, a friend from the UK rang to tell me that an old lady had booked herself a holiday to Austria. She'd been persuaded by a selling phone call. And of course, she couldn't afford it and had no means of getting to the airport. And they had to contact her son quickly for him to cancel it. And he lives several hours' drive away. It's probably a good idea to have some sort of lock on the phone, but I don't know how you work
It's
that
also
out.
illegal for them to do that, any of these people, because they've got to
They've
check
got
the
to have-
competency of the
Yeah.
person.
So it is difficult, isn't it? It's
in
like the
fine print,
anklets. The police can put navigational anklets on, but then there's a moral dilemma there of whether you're, you know, taking away their rights. So early dementia patients can't believe that they're incapable of remembering and will blame family and carers if they've got less money in the purse than they thought. So don't get upset if they accuse somebody of stealing, because this is it. They can't believe that they could have spent money and not. And it's the same with valuables. They'll give somebody something and then they'll forget. And then they'll accuse a carer or somebody of actually taking valuables. So if ever you're given anything, you must talk about it to the family or write it down or put it away in a cupboard and then give it back when she remembers that she's lost it. Because that can cause a lot of family friction unnecessarily, because it's just a common problem. And in a residential setting, don't ever take any valuables in. That is not... Coping with behavioural problems. I'm often asked how to cope with problems such as fidgeting, banging. Some will sit all day long and bang, bang, or overeating, or it's confusing, it's frustrating, it's an anxious state to live with. Sufferers who are still aware will tell you this. Sufferers lose the ability to concentrate, to read books or watch TV, and this leads to boredom, and they often want just to wander, to fidget, or overeat, just looking for something to do. One of the things that helps is to have a tray on the table and always have water available for them, because if they get thirsty and dehydrated, they don't know whether it's thirst or whether it's hunger. And they will always pick up the cup and have a drink, so always have drinks available. Also, on this tray, I used to have my patients have trays, and I used to call it fiddling fodder. And on this fiddling fodder tray, you have old postcards, you have old birthday cards, you have old photographs. If it's a gentleman, have old dominoes, cards, anything. And they can fiddle with it, and they love, ladies love old handbags. And they have the handbags, and you fill it full of all the things that they used to have, and they'll empty it, and they'll fill it again. And it keeps the hands busy, it gives them something to do. And they'll play for ages looking at the cards, looking at the photographs, and it just keeps their hands busy, because you can imagine they can't concentrate on the book, they can't concentrate on television. Sometimes the library, what do you call it, the audio books, they're quite good for a while, but they soon lose concentration, but they need to have something to fiddle with. And in the book I've put a whole chapter on activities and, you know, how to keep them occupied.
Can I just interrupt for a second?
Yes, of
when you were
course.
saying about the fiddling fodder, or whatever you call it, is it a good idea to have things that personally mean something to them, or did mean something to
Yes,
them? Or does
sometimes.
it matter that it might be completely foreign, new things?
I
I
think
guess it depends.
sometimes if they've got old photographs of the family and old photographs, because it sometimes triggers cells that are not damaged. And sometimes they can see an old photograph of the sister, because often, I don't know whether your mum thinks you're her sister or her mother, or sometimes see the photographs of their relatives who were in the younger days. There might be just some cells there that remind them. Or the first car they had.
They're also got, you know, used to be a carpenter or something, a nail or a piece of wood or something they can
Yeah.
shuffle around. Not necessarily, not the dangerous stuff, but
No.
a screw or something.
Yeah.
Smell the wood or whatever.
So I have put a whole chapter on the senses, the smell and the sight and hearing and you know, but there's so much in there for me to talk about today, so I've had to pick out. So do, if you want to ask me any questions that I haven't covered, please do ask. I wrote the book for the carers to give practical advice and support. Well, you do a very difficult job, which is not a lot of people are capable of doing. Remember, it's not the loved one being difficult, it is the dementia, it's the disease that is causing the problems. And never feel guilty. We can only do our best, and for how long you may manage to care, you deserve a medal for coping for as long as you are. Get priority, get help, get respite care, because if you are the full-time carer, if you go downhill, there's no one left to do the care, so you've really got to look after yourself.